Hello everyone, it's Danielle with Danielle's Critters, and I am here recording this video because I really appreciate that so many people watched my last one and that some of you subscribed. I had actually made a video last week right after I recorded the first one to address this topic, and I know it was really bad. Like, I didn't go back and look at it, but I just thought that if I could just get 2 videos out there, then I could start working on improvement. But throughout the week, I've gained a little more confidence, and I feel determined to make strides to improve this channel and make it into what I really want it to be. And so I'm re-recording this video, which will hopefully be better than the last one, and we'll just keep going from there. Today's question is, what is the best beginner snake, the ball python or the corn snake? And to help me answer that question, I have Dorothy here, who has a head somewhere. This is Dorothy, and she is a scaleless tessera corn snake. She is not full grown, but she is also not in brumation because of it, and she can visit with us today to help us answer the question, which is the better beginner snake, the corn snake or the ball python. I also have Naga here, who is a adult female pastel cinnamon or pewter ball python, and she is great at demonstrating why they get their name ball python, because she balls up quite frequently. She's a little nervous even though she's a 12-year-old snake. She will come out of her shell though and loosen up most of the time. In fact, the last video I had a hard time keeping her all around. Of course, Dorothy has climbed down into my shirt, so that will help me talk about the various differences between corn snakes and ball pythons. So the first thing I wanted to address was their care. These 2 snakes come up on beginner lists a lot, partially because their care is really easy, and even more importantly than that, they're very durable. So when you do make mistakes, they make it through. Everybody should be trying their best and give them the best life so that they can. But when you do make a mistake or things go wrong, the corn snake and the ball python are really likely to be forgiving and make it through that. In my opinion, the corn snake is going to be the easier snake to take care of. So they come from Southeast United States, and they do need a hot spot, but it's not going to be as hot as the ball python, and their cool side is going to be about room temperature, so you really only need heating elements on one side of the enclosure, and their humidity is great at about 30 to 50%, and people are comfortable at about 40 to 60%. So normally our homes are kept, if you're comfortable, your corn snake is probably pretty comfortable too. On the other hand, ball pythons come from Africa, and it is really warm there, and so they're going to need a warm side that's really warm, but they're also going to need a cool side that's pretty warm. So oftentimes you have to set it up so that you are Dorothy is leaving me, so that you are warming the enclosure on the cool side as well as the warm side. And their humidity requirements are a lot more than the corn snake, so that can be really frustrating for new keepers. You have a lot of tricks that you can try to up your humidity, but it usually takes a lot of trial and error until people have their humidity honed in, and then that can change dramatically come winter time, especially if you live in a place that's particularly dry. So the biggest difference, and I wasn't going to talk about this until later, but since Dorothy has left, she has wrapped herself around the legs of the table. The biggest difference, and the one that I think people need to spend the most time considering, is how the snake handles. So a ball python is going to be super slow, and they're going to hold on, and they're usually pretty chill. So Naga has opened up from her ball, but she's just hanging out on the table and chilling. And the corn snake is gonna move a lot more. And so it becomes an interactive handling experience versus just a chill. They'll call the ball python a movie snake, and some of them are way better at that than others. Because some will sit in your lap and watch a whole movie with you without any problem. Others like to explore. We have one that would periscope throughout the whole movie, so she'd lift up the front half of her body and she'd be looking around. And now that she's more brave, she's been trying to explore during a movie rather than just hanging out. The corn snake is gonna look for trouble, and they love to climb, so the fact that she was climbing down the leg of the table is not that surprising. She's also been in my shirt at least twice during this video, so now she's gonna chill. So in addition to care and handling being the two very different things, next up is feeding. So feeding is where I stopped being a huge fan of the ball pythons. I love to handle the ball pythons. I think that their care is fairly easy, but feeding them can be a pain in the butt. So we feed all our animals frozen thawed, or all our snakes frozen thawed mice and rats. And to get the corn snake to eat a frozen thawed mouse, you just need to open the enclosure and hold the mouse, and the corn snake takes it, and it's super fast and it's super easy, and you always know your corn snake is going to take the food. To get the ball python to eat it, now some of them eat better than others. Oh, that's funny, she's grabbed a hold of the table now with her tail. So some of them eat better than others. Naga's a really good eater, but they tend to need you to do the live rat dance. So you're trying to convince the snake that your rat is really alive, and you got to shake it, and the rat has to be hot enough that it appears alive through their heat pits, and it can be a challenge to get them to eat. And it's really common for them to go off food, and for them to let's leave her alone, Dorothy. For them to go off food, and for them to if there's anything off in their enclosure, like your temps are off a little bit or your humidity's off a little bit, that can increase the likelihood that they're just not going to eat. And so you could be left with having to find a different use for that mouse, rat, or throwing it away. And a lot of people do have a hard time throwing away the mice, because it does feel like you're throwing away money. So ironically, our daughter got a ball python first before we had any other snakes, and she was 11 years old, and my husband's family threw a fit, or some of his family members threw a fit, and were so sure that the ball python was going to cause her harm. And the only thing that he did was refuse a few meals and made her cry. So that can be really frustrating. I find it very frustrating, and usually make my husband feed the ball pythons, because we do currently have 8, not including our daughter's ball python. Then the other flip side, though, is the ball python has a very slow metabolism, and they'll eat, when they're smaller, they'll eat about once a week, but they're only going to poop like once every 4 weeks or so, most of them. Every now and again you'll have one that poops every week, but a lot of them don't, and so that makes cleanup easier. And their poop is more solid, so it's not a gross cleanup either. So I find that nice. Whereas the corn snake, 2 days after they eat, they're gonna poo, and they're gonna poo every time they eat. When they're little, they'll be eating 5 to 7, or once every 5 to 7 days. So you'll be cleaning up their poo frequently, and it's grosser. Like, it's hard to describe, but a healthy corn snake poo is kind of a gross poo, and the healthy ball python poo is not nearly as gross. So for my daughter, that's a huge part of why she picked ball python as her beginner snake. Now, neither one of these are very likely to bite, and that is a huge reason why they're on the beginner snake lists. However, the head of the ball python is going to be bigger than the head of the corn snake, and some people say that makes it better to be bitten by a corn snake than a ball python. I haven't actually been bit by either, so I don't know which one would be better. My husband dropped a rat in front of Naga, and Naga accidentally grabbed his hand instead of the rat. And she knew right away that she'd made a mistake, and she let go. And since I'm talking about her in a way that makes her feel sad, no, she doesn't feel anything. She's hiding her head. There she is. So she grabbed his hand, and he turned to me and he said, "I think she bit me." And then he looked down and he was bleeding, so he knew for sure that he had been bitten by the ball python. But it was so fast, and their teeth are really small, and while it did bleed, it didn't really hurt that much. Now baby snakes of both species come out of the world really afraid. The world's a big scary place when you're a noodle with a head, and they'll bite a lot. Both species will when they're first coming out, but it doesn't even break the skin. And it was hard not to laugh at the baby corn snakes this past year as they were trying to bite people. They calm down really fast though, so there's also that. With regular handling, your snake won't bite you even if it was a scared baby to begin with. And then if you get it from a breeder that you can talk to about the snake's behavior, then you can find out, whether or not it's ever bitten anybody, if it stopped the biting behaviors and all of that, which makes it one reason to get from a breeder above a pet store or off Craigslist and whatnot. So the cost for these two snakes is very similar, both for the snake themselves and for their feeding. The corn snake will be a little cheaper because it's going to eat only mice instead of rats, and that's especially true if you're going to order frozen thawed. I highly recommend that even if you have one snake, that you order a bag of frozen thawed mice or rats, depending on which species you have, and have them delivered to your door so that they're always in the freezer. It just makes things so much easier. Now you can buy a $20,000 ball python in a fancy morph, but the lower end morphs are really inexpensive. The lower end corn snakes are going to be really inexpensive. Scaleless is one of the most expensive genes, and this Dorothy would be a $450 snake. So that would be a little bit more money than a ball python. Even with two genes, Naga here is about a $200 snake. So big difference. The enclosure, though, is something that we should talk about and is a little bit debated with the corn snake. So both of these snakes are going to get somewhere in the 4 to 5 feet range is really common for both of these species. And Dorothy's back to trying to go down the chair leg. I'm not sure recording a video with the snakes was this great of an idea. I thought, hey, I'll get both of them out at the same time instead of having to go and get one in the middle of the video, because that's what I did last time. But Dorothy's definitely being squirmy, and Naga's a little bit nervous about the whole thing. She's now holding onto my arm thoroughly while hiding her head. So enclosure-wise, as you probably noticed, Naga is a thick-bodied snake, and Dorothy is not. Now, Dorothy does have some growing left to do, but even a 5-foot corn snake looks significantly smaller than a 4-foot ball python because of the girth of the ball python. Enclosure recommendations, the most recent and up-to-date recommendation for both is a 4-foot by 2-foot by 2-foot. Historically, both have been kept in lots smaller, and I've seen videos even say that you could keep an adult corn snake in a 20-gallon. One measurement that a lot of people used for a really long time is that the length side plus the width side of your enclosure should be larger than the total length of your snake. And the idea was that the snake could then spread out. And if you follow that, then a 50-gallon breeder would work for a corn snake and for most ball pythons. However, the ball pythons are going to have this girth, which is going to make their enclosure seem a lot smaller, and the corn snake is going to be active, kind of like she's been today, which will make it so that having a bigger enclosure will be enriching for the species. Both species will come out, and I know that a lot of people have said that ball pythons stay in their homes, all like in their hides the whole time, but that's not true. Most of them are fairly active, especially at night, being a nocturnal snake. And the corn snakes are also fairly exploratory. Both species will do some climbing, with corn snakes really liking the height, if you offer them branches and cork and other things to climb on. However, it does make the enclosure a fairly expensive commitment. Currently, the best place to get a 4 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot PVC enclosure, if you're not going to build your own, is going to be dubia.com. They have a really affordable enclosure that's a high quality, but it is definitely more expensive than a smaller enclosure. The real truth is, though, both of these snakes make amazing pets, and both of them are great beginner snakes. Each of them have their challenges or their pros and cons, but the real difference is going to be the handling, and you have to decide what you want. So I pulled Instagram and Facebook last week, and I got about half of the people who are team corn snake and half of the people who are team ball python, and it was a little bit funny. Also, here in our house, we have 3 snake lovers. We have 2 that would say ball python is the best snake, and I prefer the corn snakes. I really do like the interaction that you get with the corn snakes and how they are always on the move, although it makes a much more difficult video than Naga, who has just sat here wrapped around my arm the whole time. She does look like she's about ready to explore, and maybe I'll get the playpen out for her and do a short video. But you have to figure out what the best beginner snake is for you. And one of the ways you can do that is to find a place where you can handle both of those. There are more and more reptile rooms and reptile zoos that are popping up around the nation. So if you're by one of those, that is a great option. You can also oftentimes handle species at Repticons and other reptile expos around the nation. And that can be a great option for you to figure out which is the best pet snake for you, because it really does come down to what you prefer, and what pros and cons you're willing to take. Are you willing to suffer through the live rat dance where the ball python might not eat? Or do you think you can handle the yucky poo that happens every week with a corn snake? And do you want a snake that's going to chill, or one that's going to be way more squirmy? Well, thank you very much for coming, and I hope to see you next week.